This is Amud Yomi Gemara, Shabbos Daf Vov Amud Aleph, and we pick it up on the bottom of Hey Amud Beis, the two dots, 5 lines from the bottom. Tanu Rabbanon, continuing the halachas of Haitzah, transferring from one domain to the next, teaches the Gemara Hamoitzi Mechanos Leplatia Derech Stiv. Someone transfers an object from a chanos, a store, liplatia, which is a public area, derech stiv, walking through a stiv. The stiv is a form of bench area. If you look in Rashi just tells us what's going on over here. Chanos is just a yachid. Platia, rachavavu just a rabbin. Derech stiv is the place of the itztabai sheishit seichrim, that those selling their wares would say v'shem karmelis oleho. Why? It's not normal to walk through it like a rishos harabim. So what you're doing is you're going from rishos yachid to rishos harabim via a karmelis. What is the halacha? Chayiv ubenazei poiter. Explains the Gemara. Benazei holds your potter. Why? Because you're walking from one area to the next. And therefore, as you're walking, each step is like a nuakir nanacha. And therefore, you never walked a complete dalet amos. El Rabbanan. But according to the Rabbanan, I understand that they hold that walking is not ke'oimed. It's not like you're stopping. But where do we find that there's a chiyuv when you go through a karmelis, through an area which is not a rishus hayachid or rishus harabim? And the question of the Gemara is, maybe the whole chiyuv of haitzah is when you go rishus harabim to rishus hayachid direct. How do you know when you have this bridge of an area which is a karmelis in between? There still is a chiyuv. So Amar Rav Safra, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Rav Yechra, as we move over to Vav Amar Aleph, explains the Gemara, it's similar to one who transports an object within Rishus Harabim. That what? In Rishus Harabim, as long as he holds the object and walks past Dalet Amos, he is potter. And yet, when he eventually places it down, he's going to be chayiv. And as the Tab Rashi points out, it's like Mavir Chavik Rishus Harabim more than Dalet Amos, which is as long as you don't put it down, you're potter. So at some level, there's a time as you're walking that ostensibly you're not obligated. And yet, what's the din? That when you eventually put it down, you're chayiv. So says the Gemara, it's seemingly similar in our case when you're going from Shasayach to Shasarabim via an area in which you're not chayiv. Ask the Gemara, mi dami, are these two cases comparable? Some over there when you're carrying more than 4 amos, wherever you place it is an area of chiyuv. Whereas what if in the middle, in that area with the benches, in that karmelis area, what if you dropped it there? So how are the two cases the same? Ella says the Gemara, you're right. You know where we learned out this din that you're chayiv in such a case? Someone carries an object from the beginning of 4 amos to the end of exactly 4 amos. Hasam in such a scenario, even if one would place it within Dalet Amos, you'd be potter because you didn't carry the requisite Dalet Amos. So if you were to put it down beforehand, you're potter. And yet, when you put it down at the end of Aram, you're chayiv. It's true. If you put it down in the stiv, in the karmelis, you're potter. But if you put it down at the end of Dalet Amos, you're chayiv. Says the Gemara again, mi dami, are the two cases comparable? Someone who carried Dalet Amos, they got me the high gav. It's true. Within the Dalet Amos, for you particularly, it's considered a makkah b'tor. But yet, the whole world, Likuli Alma, you're in Rishus Harabim. Makom Chiyavu. Whereas in our case, Ach Likuli Alma Makom Tour, the bench area for everyone is a Makom Tour. Ella says the Gemara, attempt number 3, Midavi Moitzi Rishus Yachal Rishus Harabim, Derech Sidei Rishus Harabim. You carry from a Rishus Yachal to Rishus Harabim via an area on the sides of the streets, which as well as a Makom Tour. Hasam lava v'gav di manach le'atzid v'sharabim potter. If you put it down the side, you'd be potter. And yet, ki manach le'v'sharabim chayiv hachanami loy shina. And that's the raya why in our case, when you go from the store to the platia, from the shiyachet to the sharabim via the benched area, which is a makkah b'tor, there is a chiyuv. Ask the Gemara Maskevla Rav Papa. 15 lines down, the first word in line is Rav Papa. Ask Rav Papa, Anichel Rabbanan. This works according to the Rabbanan. Damri, who holds Siddur Shazarabim, Lavkir Shazarabim, Dami. The Rabbanan hold that the side of a street is considered a Makkah in Petur. That the side of the street is not like the Rosh Hashanah proper. El Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov. What about according to the opinion of Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov, the Amar who holds Siddur Shazarabim K'Shazarabim Dami has a din of Rosh Hashanah Mike Lememer, because then you have no raya. Because the only reason why you're chayiv in that case is because the size have the same din of Rosh Hashanah. Whereas in our case, the stay of the benched area certainly does not. Amar Rav Acha B'Rei Ravika. When does Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov hold this din? Which is Rabin Dami is only heicha delekech chifufi. Is only when there's no objects, no obstructions, no items in the sides of Rosh Hashanah that would block one from walking. Meaning, even Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov holds there are times that the Siddur Rosh Hashanah have a din of a Makkah B'Tor when there's obstructions there, and therefore similarly will be our case that even though you went through a Makkah B'Tor, there is a Chiyav once you put it down in the opposite Rishos, in the Rishos Harabim. Says the Gemara Rav Yochanan. So let's remember we started with the Machlekes Ben Azai versus the Chachamim on the bottom of Heyamid Beis. That the Chachamim, the Tanakam held your chayiv when you go for this Rosh Hashanah via the bench area. But Ben Azai said you're potter. So Amar Rav Yochanan u'moide Ben Azai. You know when Ben Azai admits bezoyrek, if you throw an object from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through such a place, Ben Azai is moidem that you are chayiv. Taninami hachi. Smack in the middle of the Amid, first word is hamoitzi. Taninami hachi, we have a raya. Hamoitzi mechanos laplati derech stev chayiv. Says the Brisa, echad hamoitzi, echad hamachnes. Whether you take it in, whether you take it out, in all cases, he is chayiv. Vechad hazoyrek, vechad hamoishet. Whether he throws it or whether he passes it. That's the Tanakama. But Ben Azai Omer, if you're moitzi mechanos, if you're hamoitzi v'machnis, says Ben Azai, if you bring it in or bring it out, then you are pot hamoishet v'hazayrek, then you are chayiv. If you hand it over or you throw it, then you are chayiv. So a brisa proving that which we just said, that according to Ben Azai, even though he holds to carry it, you're potter, but to throw it, you are chayiv. Tana Rabbanan says the Gemara Shabbos, the 2 dots, 2/3 of the way down, says the Gemara fundamentally there are 4 areas with regard to Shabbos, Shazay Yachid, Shazay Rabin, V'karmlis, U'makom B'tur. Ve'ezir Shazay Yachid, says the Gemara, Charetzu Amakasar V'rachav Arba, the basic klalim, a ditch that's 10 tefachim deep, and 4 tvachim wide, and similarly the chen geder shukavaya asar brachav arba, or a partition which is 10 tvachim high and 4 tvachim wide. Zui Rosh Yachid Gemura. So what's a Rosh Yachid? A 10 height or depth area by 4 tvachim wide. Vezi Rosh Hashanah, Sarati, a highway, Uplati, Gedela, large public place, Fulashim, the open streets. Zui Rosh Hashanah Gemura. That is a Rosh Hashanah. Says the Gemara, Ve'ein Baitzim Rosh Hashanah Zu Rosh Hashanah Zu. You're not allowed to carry from one area to the next. Nor are you allowed to bring it back from the Rishus Rabim to the Rishus HaYachid. V'im hoiti v'echlis, if you did such, b'shoigi chayiv chatos, it's an Isser Daraisa. B'mezid ein niskaris, and v'niskal. Those are the first two Rishiyas. Avol yam. But if you have an ocean, we're about 20 lines from the bottom of the Amud, the first one line is Avol. If you have a yama, sea, v'bika, open fields, v'istavanis, benched areas, v'karmelis, eina. This is the middle type of area, like your Rabim, like your Yachid. And therefore, if you carry within this area, you're not allowed to carry within this area midrabanan. Pater, it's also derabanan. And it's an intermediary area that disallows you midrabanan from carrying within it, and you're not allowed to carry from it to Rishus Rabim l'teicha. Ve'machlis Rishus Yachid l'teicha. You can't carry Rishus Yachid into it. V'le'meteicha l'Rishus HaYachid. But v'mhoiti v'echnes, then you are pater again. Seidin derabanan. Says the Gemara, once on the topic of areas which you're not allowed to carry midrabanan, with this we conclude. Chatzirei shel rabim, courtyards of the public, muvoi she'ena mefulashin, above a cul-de-sac that's not mefulish, not open at both ends. Ervoi, if you have an eruv between these two areas, mutarin, you're allowed to carry between that area. Lo ervoi, if you don't have an eruv, then asurim, that it is asur. And finally, we conclude with a case illustrating the fourth case, the Makkah Patur. Adam Aimila Skupa. Someone is standing on a threshold, which is a Makkah Patur. Naitami Balabais, he takes an object from a Balabais, which again, as we saw in the Mishnah Daf Beis, is indicative of someone in Rishus Yachid. V'nasan Loi, or he gives it to him. Naitami Ani, if he takes from the Ani, the poor man that's in the street, V'nasan Loi gives to him. Ubelvad. But provided you're not allowed to take from the balabayis and give to the ani, me'ani v'noisim lebalabayis v'imnatal v'nasan. But if you took an object from one and gave it to the other, then shleishtan paturim, then everyone is patur. There's no iser de'araisa. So again, this area, this is not the Carmelis. I'm sorry if I made that mistake. This is a Makkah in Patur. A Makkah in Patur, this type of area, the halacha is that you're allowed to carry some level from the Rishus Yachid into it, for the Shram into it, but you cannot facilitate a complete transfer. If you facilitate a complete transfer from the house to the street and vice versa, then everyone is pater, but again, it's aser midrabanan. When the door is open, it's considered like the house. Pesach, no, when the door is closed, it's 10 by 4. Then it has its own rishos. Of course, these dinim, we're going to go in further. I'm going to stop over here. I'll pick it up by Amar Mars. We'll delve deeper into the rishos the next year. B'siyata d'shmaya.